All
right, now we're back. We're back. Welcome to Giants Nation Show. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump. And we are live from Mobile, Alabama. You guys can hear us now. All right, that's why we don't do live podcasting as much as people probably want us to. We're live here from Mobile, Alabama. The Giants have hired defensive coordinator Dennard Wilson, special teams coordinator Chris Horton, and a bunch of other hires. How are we doing? Our favorite week of the year, and we're not muted now.
Yeah, it's our favorite week out of the year. It's our home away from home, and every single time we come here, we're in a new home. This one is the best home by far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, hotels I prefer. Airbnb is, I'll never advertise with them because I don't like them. But out of the Airbnbs, this is definitely the best one we had, and we'll give you a full recap of that in our Senior Bowl recap. But This one's nice. We got our cow that welcomed us here. We got a pool out back, so usually this is a Senior Bowl preview, and this is just a fun episode for us that we don't really care that much about views or anything.
We have work to do this time.
This is a major episode. This is the Giants hired Dennard Wilson as their defensive coordinator episode. So, I mean, let's jump right into it. Dennard Wilson was the guy that I wanted 2 years ago, right? When we were down here 2 years ago trying to figure out who the next Giants defensive coordinator was going to be, if Mike Kafka was going to stay on OC, Dennard Wilson was that number one guy for us. He goes to the Tennessee Titans, chooses that clean slate with Brian Callahan instead of being on the hot seat right away with Brian Dable. And they didn't have good results. We're going to break that all down. I know this sounds crazy because we're going to go through some of his rankings and stuff. I am genuinely excited about him as a defensive coordinator. Maybe that's confirmation bias because of the fact that I did like him a couple years ago. But listening to some Titans people, diving into the film, some of the numbers, he is just kind of what I like in a defensive coordinator, which is built-in disguise, aggression, and relying on players playing smart, right? You're going to need to – you can't just have a single assignment and stick to it. Like this defense, I think, is going to expect excellence from especially those guys on the back end.
It's early, and we'll have to see it, but from everything that we've looked into, it sounds to me like Dennard Wilson is the perfect blend of defensive coordinators that I like. He's at a varied background. We're going to get into all this stuff in depth, but he seems like a good blend of Wink Martindale and Patrick Graham to me, right? Like somebody who likes to put pressure on the opposing quarterback in terms of varied looks, and also with that Patrick Graham of like disguised coverages in the back end and make quarterbacks do a lot more post snap, which is sort of what Wink Martindale did, but that was always with an emphasis on bringing pressure from exotic places, which we don't know yet if that's going to be what we saw because Dennard Wilson didn't really do a lot of that in Tennessee, but then also the roster there was severely lacking on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the back half, which really limits when you really just can't blitz out of control like that. So, but yeah, I mean, a guy with a very diverse background, went through, Greg Williams, Todd Bowles as our premier influences for him. And those are very attacking style defensive coordinators, but then also was with Jonathan Gannon, which is not really that situation.
Yeah. And then Mike McDonald. So he's kind of switched, like, he's not the line up everybody in the line of scrimmage, play a lot of man coverage aggression the way the guys like Todd Bowles and even Greg Williams are. He has adopted more of a Mike McDonald, more so than I would say Jonathan Gannon. But like one of the reasons why I liked him was like, he goes and it was a DB coach for the Eagles, and they were top 5 in all passing categories. And he goes to the Ravens, same thing, and obviously those teams had talent, but the Eagles, when he left, they went to 31st in passing defense the next season. The Ravens, after he left, obviously they lost Mike McDonald and Anthony Weaver as well. They went to 31st in passing defense. So, I think that makes an impact. And his resume is the last 2 years as the Titans defensive coordinator. 1 year as the Ravens DB coach. 2 years as the Eagles DB coach and pass game coordinator. 4 years with the Jets under Todd Bowles and Greg Williams. Was with the Rams as the DB coach under Greg Williams again. And then he was a quality control. And then he actually was a pro scout for a little bit for Chicago after being an NFL player. With the Titans, let's just kind of go through some numbers and then try and divulge into what we saw on film, what we expect out of him. His first year, they were 30th in points per game, second in yards allowed, and 30th in points per game. I've never seen such a dichotomy between those two rankings before. Passing yards second, rushing 26, So they were good in those. 25th in EPA per play. This past year, 28th in scoring, 21st in yards. Like kind of everything got worse this year, but we'll look at the depth chart of Tennessee and part of this conversation. And that's extremely relevant. So by watching film, by going off of my notes from a couple years ago and what those guys like Mike McDonald like to do, and then listening and talking with some Titans people, looking at numbers, he kind of plays to what I like. And so there's a little bit of bias for me. It's like, that's what I like, is there is aggressive disguise mixed with defenders needing to be understanding passing concepts and taking calculated risks. That's what I want. You can't do that with every DB. If you have Deonte Banks out there, that limits what you can do. Like, you got to have the right players, and he had a lot of young players. But that's what I look for in a defensive coordinator, especially coming from the DB coach background, is being very aggressive in the back end. And I think that showed up on film. I did a little mini breakdown of one today, and then I went and watched all the interceptions. This is wonderful. Can you hear? Is that just one person commenting that started from the beginning? Anybody in the chat saying no audio? Can you guys hear us?
Well, I guess if they can't hear us, they won't answer.
They can hear.
Okay.
Totally lost my train of thought there. Okay, let me get back on track here. We're never ever doing a live podcast in Mobile again. Sorry. So it's just aggressive on the back. And so this is what I was saying. I went and watched all the interceptions over the last 2 years, and a lot of those were from heavy disguise coverages, right? Where you're running cover 2 from a single high, you back a nickel corner on the cover 2, but also within that, it's not just like the Giants actually started running a lot of this towards the end of Shane Bowen with the Giants, and then a lot with Charlie Bullen. It obviously had better results when they were playing, the Vikings and Commanders and the Raiders. They had more success with these types of things. But the issue was that the defenders were just going to their spots for the most part, right? Like, it's just like, hey, you can disguise it. We're going to our spots. And a lot of times for quarterbacks, it's like, all right, like, sure, I just got to find the hole in the zone. What he's trying to teach is we're going to disguise that, and the DB who is a part of that, the part of that disguise, you've got to understand what passing concept they're trying to get to, reading that, and you need to take a calculated risk with it, right? You're not going to get interceptions unless it's just terrible overthrows or playing, great man coverage. You're not going to get that without controlled aggression. And I think that's something that he tries to teach. He didn't always have the guys that work that. I remember a quote from him talking about how, hey, we really had to simplify what we're doing here because guys are just not picking it up the right way, which is probably my biggest red flag for Dennard Wilson, is that scheme is great. All this scheme is great. At the end of the day, I think defensive coaching is a lot about teaching more so than just scheme. Everybody can have scheme. Where I think offensively is where, you can scheme guys open and just hit that type of thing. Defenders, you got to have this guy matching this, match that, blitz here, back out there. But that's my only question, is like how good of a teacher he is. Everybody, I was shocked. There was a consensus from Tennessee of like, this is a good coach, right? And coordinators get more blame than they deserve a lot of times when talent's not there. And it was almost consensus from the Tennessee crowd. They're like, no, this is a good coach who's been screwed by the talent of the Titans.
The biggest challenge is going to be whether, as defensive coordinator, Dennard Wilson has enough time to fully teach DBs to do this stuff. Because a lot of this stuff is going to be on the back end. A lot of the communication stuff and the understanding and being able to read the concept as it's happening and kind of, react to it and peel off and trust the guys around you to be in the right spot and pick up the right thing and see the same thing that you are seeing. That trust and that's all going to be in the back end. And really, we have plenty of evidence of Dennard Wilson as a DB coach in Philly and in Baltimore, of that working, right? Like you put him with Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, and you can see it working. You put him with James Bradbury and CJ Gardner-Johnson and Darius Slay in Philadelphia, and you see it working. When you go to Tennessee, and A, you don't have the talent, and B, you have to run a whole defense and call a whole defense in training camp, when you move in and bring that system in, like, do you have the time as the defensive coordinator with all the extra responsibilities of being able to teach that on the back end? And that's going to be the big question, because we don't have evidence of that. Now, there are other contributing factors. Like you said, the Tennessee Titans roster leaves a lot to be desired on the back end, right? Like that's a huge problem. And it's not just about the physical talent on the field. It's about the traits. It's about what he inherited when he got there, and also the football IQ and the instincts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The Giants are certainly a better scenario. Like if there's one team that we're just confident, like, yeah, we're much better defensively or the talent wise, it is the Tennessee Titans. And I mean, let's look at this Titans depth chart. You have Jeffrey Simmons. Their second best pass rusher was Jihad Ward, that is an insult to the Titans. Dennard Wilson also had him have a career high with 5 sacks. He had the 5th most quarterback hits in the NFL this year with 21.
That's crazy,
right? Like, so as like much as that was their second best pass rusher, they were 12th in sacks, more than the Giants, 12th in quarterback knockdowns. So like he was aggressive, like, we're going to use twists and stunts. So he's going to have a much better pass rush from the Giants, because I think he even has an upgrade over Jeff Simmons and Dexter Lawrence, and hopefully Dexter Lawrence is more engaged this year. And then the edge rushers are clearly better. There's some downfall to that we'll get to in the run defense as well too. In the secondary, I think it's Paulson Adebo, I think, does fit this, right? Paulson Adebo did a lot of similar things with Dennis Allen. I know because he likes to press up one corner. He likes to do that. Even in zone coverage, like, want to press a guy up, and he'll even turn that into man while having everybody else in zone coverage. Tried to do that with L'Jarius Sneed, and L'Jarius Sneed just was injured the entire time in his 2 years with the Titans. The Giants don't have that guy. Everyone points to Deonte Banks. I think it's one of the most oversaid
factual inaccuracies
about the Giants. Like, Deonte Banks is great in press. He's terrible in press. He gets exposed a lot more in press, and you got to be smart in this defense. I don't think Banks is really a part of this at all. Drew Phillips is a big in-between player, because Drew Phillips is going to be a good fit, I think, run defense-wise with Dennard Wilson. But Dennard Wilson doesn't play a lot of man coverage, where Drew Phillips, that's where he makes his plays, but that's also where he gets beat. But Drew Phillips doesn't really hasn't shown any type of zone coverage instincts at all either. So, like, he's a big to be decided. Javon Holland, how much are you going to buy in? Tyler Nubin, you would like to think the mind is there, but is he going to be in there? Like, really, it makes me want to get Caleb down. So there's going to be, I think the secondary, it's kind of a fresh slate for all of these guys of, like, let's figure out if you fit with this. And there's going to be guys added there. And I think there's going to be guys added around the fringe if some of those, players that he's taking over, that he's inheriting, some of those inherited players aren't doing it the right way. I'm going to put this corner in. I'm going to put this safety in over you. So, like, there's a big test for those guys.
Well, I'll say this. In this defense with this style, right, where it's banking so much on football IQ, intelligence, and communication, they will be better served paying veterans that are on the back end of their career on a cheaper deal than going out and getting, a first-round pick corner or something like that. That would be better for the implementation of this and for the first year of Dennard Wilson here, as other guys kind of get acclimated to this, because it's going to be more important that these guys are all seeing the same things and understanding the concept than it is their actual physical traits for the first year, especially with a roster that on the back end, I'm not sure. Like you said, you went through player by player. Like, I don't know how all of these guys fit in this.
And I think what would be smart, and we'll do this on our, February mailbag or whatever. I think this is a good question, is I think they can steal a little bit from Dan Quinn, and not fully of what the Commanders did, but year one, I think what Dan Quinn did, and two totally different styles. But I remember doing football today. I was like, I don't know what this defense is going to be, but it surely is built in Dan Quinn's image, right? So, like, you're not going to go out and get all these star players. I think they'd be smart to go, let's go just bring vets who we know can run what we want to run. We'll draft young players at those same positions. We'll see who steps up. But we know we have guys that we can trust in this, right? Like Marlon Humphrey. I'm sure everyone will LOL. But, like, get a guy who's, like, comfortable, you trusting to do the right things in this type of defense. So, looking at the Titans depth chart, when we look at those stats, I mean, here's their starting group. Sebastian Joseph Day, Tavondre Sweat, Jeff Simmons, Jahad Ward, Cody Barton, who did play well with him, and I think linebacker, having a guy he trusts is going to be key. Cedric Gray, Arden Key, Daryl Baker Jr., Amani Hooker, Kendall Brooks, Khair Elam, and Kamon Hall. Obviously had some guys who are better than those guys who are on IR, like L'Jarius Sneed, and some other,
McCreary.
Some other, Roger McCreary ends up getting traded to the Rams mid-season. So, like, they just didn't have much to work with at all. Coverage-wise, cover 4, cover 6, he's 4th and 7th in the NFL in the usage.
He's gonna have safeties over the top to prevent explosive.
Yeah, it's gonna be too high safety because like cover 3 is basically the defense that almost most teams use more than anything, even if they're high in the ranks of the quarters and stuff like that. But his cover 3 is very much too high safety. Safety drops down to the middle of the field, one more towards the middle of the field, right? So everything's going to come out from split safeties. Let's talk about the negative side of that. The run defense, right? The run defense has been bad both years. This past year, not terrible, actually. Middle of the pack, 15th in rushing, 15th in yards per attempt. The year before, 26th in yards per game, 18th in yards per attempt. If anything, Tennessee did kind of have the guys that could help with that. Right? I remember, watching Shane Bowen film streams. I was like, maybe they're good playing the run defense because these guys aren't stars, but they are good run defenders. If you're going to be living in split safety, he lives out of nickel, right? They're never going to get in base personnel. If they're, if you're playing heavy personnel, what he's going to do is he's going to put on a third safety instead of a fourth safety. A third safety instead of just your regular nickel corner. This is the difference is as much as they don't have the defensive ends, Burns and Carter are not great edge setters. Right. So there's going to have to be more of an emphasis on those guys of like stopping the run on the way to the passer. But also he's going to have a lot more fun as a pass rusher. He had to stunt a lot up front with those guys. Maybe that's something he dials back a little bit, even though we'd like to see it a little bit, especially on those late downs with Abdul Carter. So there is questions where this is not anywhere near the talent he had as the DB coach at Baltimore and the DB coach with the Eagles, but it is a lot more talented than Tennessee. But this roster also has flaws that he didn't have in Tennessee when it came to some of the run defense stuff. So there's questions. My biggest question is not, is he good, smart? Is he better than Shane Bowen or better than this? Or is he, I think he's going to be a solid defensive coordinator. Can he be a great one? I think that's a question of how do they address the run defense and just how is he as a teacher? How is he as a teacher? And I don't hold that depth chart against him. Like I said, like that's pretty brutal to have to deal with in your year two. So you got anything else on him overall?
Yeah, I mean, speaking to two things. Speaking to Abdul Carter, he's never really coached a player quite like Abdul Carter. So that's going to be super interesting to me, not just in the first year, but if he lasts a second year here, whether he gets, another job or gets fired or something like that, how Abdul Carter and his versatility and his, varied skill set can be used and how he is used. Like, is he used as a chess piece or is he pigeonholed into a specific role? That I think is going to be very interesting and how creative he decides to get with Abdul Carter or, how structured he makes his life. And then the other thing, speaking to him as a teacher, I have very little doubt that he is a good teacher, right? Being that he came through John Harbaugh's system and he has such a strong emphasis on coaches being teachers, I feel pretty comfortable going into this that he's going to be a good teacher. Like I said, my question is, as a defensive coordinator, will he have the time to get his defensive backfield taught? You know what I mean? Like it's just a matter of, the CBA and how much time they're allowed to spend with these guys. So, yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else on him before we move on to the next thing. Like I said, coaching style, split safety, and disguise. Even little things, right? Like, we talk about the rotating the cover two. There was an interception he had on Matthew Stafford where it was just simple. It was a basic cover three, except for, you have a flat defender and then just think you're looking at a defense and you're looking to one side. The corner bails deep. You're expecting somebody underneath, and then you have to have somebody in the middle of the field too. He just swaps those responsibilities. So Matthew Stafford thinks he has a quick, easy out route. And instead, that linebacker is bailing into the flats and gets himself a nice interception. I can't remember which player it was. So there's that stuff. Again, Cody Barton did a lot for him. He's going to need a linebacker he trusts. You don't need an all-pro, but you need somebody you trust. All-pro would be nice. He wants to press. He won't press if it's not working, but that's what he wants to do. He wants to live out of press alignment, at least with one. Not a lot of man coverage. He's going to attack the run with the nickel, right? That's his way of countering the run, is using the nickel corner as like a penetrator, gap shooter, which we've seen Drew Phillips have success with that.
Yeah.
How does he work in the back end is the question of how good Drew Phillips is going to be in this defense. Only 19% man usage, 24th highest in the NFL. Got pretty good pass rush production with no edge rushing talent, and a lot of good interceptions. All right, so we're going to get on to some of the other coaches, and then we'll do some Senior Bowl stuff. Man, I really regret going live because it seems like we got a million damn issues going on, right?
Do you want to talk about Charlie Bullen and Tim Kelly being retained before we get into the other coach?
I want to talk about the special teams coordinator first, but first, this episode was brought to you by some special people. We got Etney Alvis Jr., not Elvis, Alvis. We got King C. They call me King B. He's King C. Patrick Wall, John Wall, Super Anthony, who I think was in our chat. Yeah, I think he's an engineer, by the way. Nick Hoff, not Nick Hahn. He's Nick Hoff. Just regular old Mike. Who's your G-man? I'm sure he's pretty happy about Indiana, or he's just saying who is your G-man. We got Denny Giannetti. That rhymes. I like that. We got Joshua K, Alex R. They don't have last names. They just have letters.
Yeah.
And then we got JK, just kidding, and Michael Cratter. He's not the ratter. He's the Cratter. Grump, who are these special people?
These special people make episodes like this possible by going to patreon.com/GiantsNation and signing up for one of the 2 tiers that are available. They instantly get access to watch recordings like this one live all the time. This one in particular is live, but all the other pre-recorded ones they get to watch live on Patreon. They also get access to weekly game tape breakdowns that Bobby does. They also get stickers in the mail from Bobby. They get entered into a monthly free t-shirt raffle. We're also giving away Jordan Ranon's book this year every month.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, they were glad they did.
Glad they did. So, I'm just not looking at the chat. If this whole episode goes silent, screw it. So thanks for trying to screw with the episode. Really appreciate that. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Seriously, love that. That's probably the most mad I've ever been at our listeners ever. So wonderful. You got a reaction on me. Congratulations.
Chris Horton.
If you do that to Chris Horton, he will beat your ass.
That's right.
The Giants hired special teams coordinator. He's also going to be the assistant head coach. Chris Horton, 41 years old. This guy is basically a John Harbaugh lifer, and we're going to talk about a Harbaugh lifer and a running back. We might have the most overqualified running back coach in the NFL. We'll get to in a bit. 41 years old. The last since 2019, he's been the Ravens special teams coordinator. What was he doing the 5 years before that? Did you ask? He was the Ravens assistant special teams coordinator. So since 2014, he's been either the head special teams coach or assistant for John Harbaugh, who is comes from the special teams background. He spent 2 years as a UCLA quality control where he went to college. He's actually a former New York Giant. He spent an off season with the Giants, as a camp body. Special team stuff is hard to find too much information. Since he's been the coordinator, they've had 3 return touchdowns. It's hard. You can't really find cumulative net punt and all that stuff. But if there's one thing where I'm not gonna judge this guy individually and go look at what he's done, but it's more so process. I want John Harbaugh, who has that special teams background, to get his guy, unlike the past couple coaches who just kept, the retaining one because of good word from the Giants. So I'm happy to get Chris Horton. We don't have a ton to break down on him, but I guess I'm happy with him, and we'll judge him as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, couple things on this special team stuff. I would have been happy with Michael Gobriel being retained. I know it's like an easy meme to be like Giants special teams is terrible, and then cite I don't know, Jamie Gillen having a bad punt here or there, or just the kicking situation. But I thought that he did some interesting stuff with the kickoffs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to argue with John Harbaugh, the special teams guy and the special teams coordinator he's had for forever. You know what I mean? That makes too much sense to me. I would have been annoyed if it didn't happen, to be honest. So, there's too much faith I'm going to put in that for it to be.
And I didn't dislike Michael Gobriel as a special teams coach. I don't really blame the special teams coach for
Right.
kickers and punters
Of course not.
missing
That's what I'm
kicks,
saying,
especially guys who have been pros for a long time, like Gillen and Gano. But it's just more so it's like get your own guy, right? Like if you did a clean slate, if Michael Gabriel decided to quit coaching, or would you try and bring him back out of retirement, or would you just get somebody else? So go get somebody else in Chris Horton.
Well, I'd have a little bit less faith if Chris Horton were only with John Harbaugh like last year, but that's just not the case. And then the other thing too is it's hard to look at any special team stuff with the Ravens because, first of all, if you have a good team, that usually means that you have good depth. And if you have good depth, that means that you have good special teams. Usually, those are guys that are playing special teams. And on top of that, they've had Justin Tucker for forever. So, I mean, you look at any of the special team stats and it's all amazing. But what does it mean? It means the Ravens had a good team. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I feel pretty comfortable with that hire.
The coaches that the Giants are retaining that we know of, I know it was reported Carmen Brasil is not being retained. I think he was given the option of like, hey, if you want to go, you can go. If you want to stay, stay. I think he said a 2B. I don't know exactly. I understand that he's under contract, but I also don't think keeping your most important position coach there, if he doesn't want to be, is the most sound idea. We'll see who the O-line coach is. We don't know yet. But the two coaches we know that they have retained, tight end coach Tim Kelly, who was the interim offensive coordinator, and then outside linebacker coach Charlie Bullen, who was the interim defensive coordinator. So keep both the interim coaches. Charlie Bullen, I like. Obviously, there's a Joe Shane connection there, and that gives you a little bit of pause of like, is he's been recommended. But I think he did a solid job as the defensive coordinator in his little bit limited opportunity there. I think he's smart. He worked with Brian Burns to have his career year. Abdul Carter, I think he used him fairly well, even though we didn't get the sacks until later on. Kayvon Thibodeau, despite getting injured, was having, he started the season having his best year. He even looked a lot better last year, in my opinion, on film than he did in that 11 sack season under Wink Martindale and Drew Wilkins. So I like keeping him. Tim Kelly, I'm not going to sit here and tell you if a tight end coach is good or not. And I don't want to judge coaches off press conferences, even though his weren't inspiring one way or the other. But those are the two guys. It seems pretty interesting that both of those guys were the interim coordinators, and maybe that's just high recommendation of trying to keep some familiarity there with, Jackson Dart likes this and Jackson Dart likes that. And I think they just kept Charlie Bullen because they really like Charlie Bullen overall.
Yeah, it seems to me, and obviously I don't know anything, but it seems to me that they're being retained for two separate, completely different reasons. In fact, opposite reasons. I kind of agree that Tim Kelly is probably being retained because of the familiarity for a second-year quarterback. And, he's also had experience in the league for quite a while. He's been an offensive coordinator multiple times at multiple places, right? Charlie Bullen, on the other hand, I think is being retained for a different reason. Like you said, he's like a younger guy. He's sort of a Joe Shane guy. I think that he has a lot of qualities that they see as a future bright mind, like something that they can mold and develop, and possibly maybe he becomes a defensive coordinator when Dennard Wilson becomes a head coach somewhere, something like that. I think that they see him as dedicated, hardworking, communicates well with the players, motivates them well, like all of these like important intangible factors for like a high ranking coach, like a defensive coordinator and stuff like that, and just needs time to mold his mind, you know what I mean, and build that. And they don't want to, there's no reason to jettison him. We don't know the roles that either of these guys are being retained within, though.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty safe that tight end coach, outside linebacker coach Bullen. I like Bullen, right? He comes from that Vance Joseph background, with the Arizona and the Dolphins underneath him. And, I don't like that Patriots game. I like that he threw the sink out that, right? He didn't just come out and be like, what, we're going to play man coverage and we're going to teach fundamentals. He's like, you know what? Let's try and give ourselves a schematic advantage. And he tried some of those things as it went on. I do think Shane Bowen was starting to try some of those things at the end. The Giants just were not equipped to do that, and they weren't being taught correctly. And to ask Charlie Bowen to do all that in season, I think is very difficult, especially when he's not the DB coach. And the DB coach is brand new, and Marquand Manuel, who didn't inspire much confidence. Most of the DBs got worse, when they lost Jerome Henderson. So I like Charlie Bullen. The limited, things you see on Hard Knocks interaction with Brian Burns. So I like Charlie Bullen. Tim Kelly, I don't really have an opinion on. which means I'm not going to trash it. I'm also not going to be like this. I'm really glad that this guy is back as the tight end coach. The next coach, before we get into a little bit of Senior Bowl preview, we are here for the Senior Bowl. We have the most overqualified running back coach in the NFL. And you want to know how he's overqualified? It's because people have a lot of opinions on him. Yeah. Why do they have a lot of opinions on him? Because the guy's been a head coach in like 5 different spots in college. Running back coach Willie Taggart, 49 years old. This guy is not a John Harbaugh guy. He is a Harbaugh. He's basically like the third brother of the Harbaugh family. He was the Stanford running back coach with Jim Harbaugh, including the Toby Gerhart second place Heisman year. I think he should have won that Heisman over Mark Ingram. He was actually the best man at Jim Harbaugh's wedding. He played and coached under Jack Harbaugh, the father. And then he's been with the Ravens the last 3 years as their running back coach and assistant head coach. He's not carrying over that title. Chris Horton, the special teams coach, has that with the Giants. So the last 3 years he's been with the Ravens. Before that, kind of telling his story, is he went from the Stanford running back coach to Western Kentucky for 3 years, which was his alma mater, as head coach. Then he goes to South Florida, helps rebuild that program for 4 years, gets 1 year at Oregon. You remember him. He's the guy who left Oregon after 1 year, and no one really blamed him because it was his dream job, FSU, where he's from Tallahassee. For 2 years, it goes bad at FSU, spends 3 years as the FAU head coach before they move on from him. When you look at his record, it doesn't speak a ton of confidence as a head coach in college. 16-20 at Western Kentucky, 24-25 at USF, 7-5 at Oregon, 9-12 at FSU, 15-18 at FAU. But he did break Western Kentucky's 26-game losing streak in his first season, and then went 7-5 twice in years 2 and 3. He built up USF back up, to be 10-2. Oregon was coming off of one of their worst seasons of the last, if not the worst season of the last 20 years. Takes them 7-5. Gets the FSU job after Jimbo Fisher left, and it failed pretty badly. There's a lot of contributing things there, and then FAU. This guy's hard nosed, he's going to get after you a little bit, right? The Ravens, the last 3 years with him as running back coach, they've been first, and second in rushing yards per carry, third, first, and first. Well, Bobby, Lamar Jackson, though. Lamar Jackson, that's why. Okay, let's remove Lamar Jackson's rushing. And this is not removing every quarterback's rushing, by the way, when I look at these numbers. This is only removing Lamar Jackson's rushing stats the last 3 years. So without that, they would be 17th, 8th, and 3rd in the NFL in rushing. Again, this is a mobile quarterback league, and I'm keeping all of their rushing yards in this. We'll talk about the receiving part of this too. He's had Derrick Henry the last couple of years, but I think he's done a good job with some of the other backs like Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill, using those guys to create explosives and as a receiver. Lamar helps with that. This guy, he's a Harbaugh guy through and through. I think I'm just going to say we do have the most overqualified running back coach in the NFL without looking at any of the other running back coaches in the NFL.
I really like that the Jack Harbaugh's third son, like Ronnie Barnes. He really is like a part of the Harbaugh thing. And like you said, where he's a hard-nosed guy, I think there was actually like a scandal when he was the head coach of Oregon where like the summer off-season program, like a bunch of students or like student athletes had like fatigue from the workouts.
It was like military training. They're a little dehydrated.
Yeah. So I mean, hey man,
he needs to get on the body armor program. That's his biggest issue.
Yes,
he doesn't value hydration enough. He needs to get on the body armor program, and
that's okay. He's not a head coach, so that'll be John Harbaugh making sure that he's got his players on the body armor routine. But yeah, so I actually would not be surprised if he's more than the running backs coach. He was interviewed for the offensive coordinator. We have not named an offensive coordinator yet. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, let's say that.
Okay.
He's not officially the running back coach. He's been agreed to join the Giants, but we're waiting on Todd Monken. We thought we've been waiting on the Todd Monken episode for 2 weeks now. It hasn't happened. So assuming that Todd Monken's the OC, which the Giants are assuming that, he will likely go to running back coach.
My only thing is he was the assistant head coach in Baltimore. That position's gone, but it wouldn't shock me if he was a running back coach and like run game coordinator or
Right.
some other title on top of it. Why do you ask that? Because when he was at USF, he sort of molded his own offense. His offense was based around the West Coast offense that he's very comfortable with the Harbaughs, but it was centered around the Gulf Coast. And what he did, he called it the Gulf Coast offense. What he did is he utilized the athletic quarterback that he had in Quentin Flowers and kind of implanted some triple option concepts into a West Coast thing, right? So you have a lot of emphasis on tempo. You have a lot of emphasis on putting defenders in conflict, putting athletes in space to just be athletic. And, you know, a lot of focus on simple concepts, simple communication, shortened things. Like sometimes West Coast play calls can be really, really strung out and too lengthy and long. He shortened that stuff down to like 2 words so that you can keep that tempo going. And, you know, you have wide receivers are a big part of the blocking game. And because of that, he has a lot of experience with dealing with the varied and nuanced communication between quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, because you have to have all 3 on the same page, because in any given play in this offense that he built, you have a quarterback that can keep the ball, a quarterback that can throw the ball, and a quarterback that can hand the ball off. And the running back, the wide receivers, the quarterback, they all kind of sort of have to be on the same page for this quick concept thing. And that sort of makes sense, right? You bring a guy like that in, you have a Lamar Jackson type of quarterback, that makes sense. You have a Jackson Dart kind of quarterback, that kind of makes sense. And I can see a little bit of trickle of concepts being like pushed into an offense that's designed that way, you know, a thing here or two, but his ability to coach those guys, right? Like he'll be the running back coach, but he can kind of bring Jackson Dart over and kind of group them together and teach things, I think is a possibility. But I think that particular skill set that he has, that knowledge of an offense quite like that, is going to be a big part of, you know, Jackson Dart's development and utilizing all of the skills that Jackson Dart has.
Absolutely. So yeah, most that's another, the receiving part. Like, you know, as a like this is, you know, Derrick Henry's not a receiving back. He doesn't get a lot of receiving yards. So they've used the other guys, even with Derrick Henry. This year they only had 450 receiving yards, but 604 the year before. Like Derrick Henry, that almost 2,000 yard rushing, he might even hit 2K. They had 604 receiving yards in the NFL. You know, so they've been 10th and 11th in running back receiving yards. But again, a little bit of that is Lamar. The Giants this past year actually had the 6th most with Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterbo. And you've got a good bit of yin and yang where Scatterbo is the guy you kind of want to get in the screen game, dump it off and let him break tackles, where Tracy you can use a little more downfield. So I think there's going to be an emphasis on teaching that with Tracy as they figure out what their running back room is going to look like. You saw Tracy for the first time really ever, because you can't, you know, he has the wide receiver background. You think, oh, great route runner. He was used a lot. At Purdue, they didn't use him as a receiver at all. Once he moved the running back, that didn't really happen last year. You started to see it at the end of the season with Jackson Dart, right? You have that wheel route, that touchdown he had against the Commanders, had the touchdown against the Cowboys in the final game of the year. So I think there'll be a little bit of more emphasis, as X kind of left a taste, I think, in the Giants' mouth of Tyrone Tracy's receiving ability.
There's so much Todd Monken talk that could be implemented into this.
I know. I'm thinking of like tempo and all that,
Yeah.
but we'll save that for whenever Todd Monken's the OC. Was hoping for it to happen by now. If it doesn't happen now,
it's going to happen tomorrow morning when we're busy.
Browns, drag this out for 2 more days. Please drag this out for a couple more days. All right, so that's it with the new coaching hires. I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit on the Senior Bowl recap. Before that, we are here in Mobile, Alabama with our Cal. Thank you, Cal, for joining us. This has always been a 3-man show. We should have put
a hat. Yeah.
No, we should have put headphones.
Oh.
While I talk, why don't you grab me a headset out of there? Actually, you know what? Friday show, Cal will get a get a headset.
Be an official third host.
Yeah, we'll even plug it in and everything.
No audio.
Senior Bowl preview. So here's part of the preview. A lot of our guys we did prep on dropped out. A lot of the guys dropped out. David Bailey, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Just a lot of guys ended up dropping out. Here's what we're watching, especially that we're a 2-man crew now. Like, we're obviously going to watch the receiving one-on-ones and stuff, and there's certain guys I have my eyes on. We're going to focus on trenches this year. right? We're going to be looking at offensive line and defensive line. That's where guys have not dropped out on the offensive line. They have at the edge position, which doesn't disappoint me as if like, oh, I wanted David Bailey or I wanted Ruben Bain or I wanted Akeem Mesidor. What I did want to see is I wanted to see the offensive tackles go against those guys, right? Like Austin Barber, somebody that we interviewed this morning. He struggled a little bit with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor in his opportunity at Miami. Has he learned from that a little bit? So we're going to be focusing on the trenches, and we're not going to get too much into names. One thing, though, that this is like a staple of the Senior Bowl is small school offensive lineman. Small school offensive lineman who's going to be, he played tackle at a small school. He's going to be moving inside here. Delby Lemieux out of Dartmouth. Not family with Shane, even though I'm sure they get
Mario or Claude.
Yeah, none of those Lemieux. That's a guy who it's like, all right, prove to me who you are, right? Like Gray Zabel last year, like Quinn Miners a couple years ago out of Wisconsin Whitewater.
Christian Hayes.
Yeah. Like, show me who you are. Like, this is a big week of show me who you are. If you do good here, we're going to go and watch your film and do a write-up on you, obviously. But if you struggle down here, we'll probably skip a write-up on you, right? Like, we're just going to be like, all right, this just didn't work out. So, W. Lemieux out of Dartmouth, the offensive line, is somebody that I'm certainly paying attention to.
Yeah, we were looking at some defensive tackles before, and there's some big names here like Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks.
Lee Hunter, who we have on the Patreon channel, by the way.
Yes, but Devin Eastern from Minnesota, when everybody drops out, you start kind of like trying to familiarize yourself really quickly, and he's somebody that jumps up immediately as someone that can be, a showstopper down here at the Senior Bowl. Quick into the backfield, big body guy.
So I'm trying to convince Grump to move to Florida.
He's trying very hard.
Yeah,
it's been, like roughly every 10 minutes.
I'm trying harder than John Boy tried to get me up to New York, honestly. And one of the things is we just started putting like Senior Bowl. We're not doing a ton of full write-ups while we're down here. We're trying to familiarize, so we put highlight tapes on. And so I got the clicker, and we just watched Devin Eastern before we came on the show, the Minnesota defensive tackle. Dude, quick get off. I mean, bam, back into the backfield. He's a big dude. He finishes at the running back as well, too. We obviously were seeing the highlights, so, he's doing highlights on those.
We'll find out what he's not good at.
But quick get off, right? That's not something that's just highlights. Quick get off with that size was impressive. So, again, please, in the chat, let me know if you guys want Grump move to Florida. Maybe I'll even do a poll for the people while you talk. So, Devin Eastern was somebody. Lee Hunter is obviously the big name. Tyreek Sapp out of Florida, right? I don't know if Caleb Banks is going to participate. He's obviously dealing with an injury. Both those Gators guys I'm going to be paying attention to because Caleb Banks could be somebody that could be the Giants pick at the top of the second round to add to that defensive tackle room.
As much as the Gators had a terrible year and a letdown year, you're firing your head coach, etc., that defensive line is a monstrous unit. And both of those guys, Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp, are tremendous players. And I don't know that they have too much to show down here. Honestly, they just have to, this has to be confirmation bias for them. So they might be a quick 1 or 2 days and then they're out of here. Maybe they'll stay for the whole week and play in the game. I have no idea, but definitely someone to, just confirm what we saw all year with the Florida Gators is exactly how they are progressing towards the NFL. Tight ends are going to be a big part, I think, of this offense. And we were just kind of looking at Justin Jolie, North Carolina State tight end.
Isaiah Likely role.
Yeah. As that guy who's basically a big wide receiver. We'll have to see what he's like in the blocking situations, I think. But, man, good hands, contested catch guy, and makes some moves in the open field. Maybe a little bit of balance issues. He can run himself out of his own shoes from time to time, but it doesn't go down easy either.
Yeah. Good. Like you said, good. Again, so we're watching highlights. I'd like to see him as a move blocker, right? Like I remember doing Isaiah Likely write-up for this week and being like, man, he can scoot. He can move. He can be a receiver. Can't inline block, but as a move blocker out on the edges, like he's actually pretty damn good at that. Need to clean up some route running stuff, and you've seen them, use him pretty good. Obviously, I joked about wanting an all-pro tight end the other day. A lot of people are anti-all-pro tight end,
right?
But like, they have been a big 2 tight end team with the Ravens. That's partly due to personnel, partly due to their quarterback. But like, we know that they at least like to do that. So maybe they get someone to join in with Theo Johnson for a year as that second tight end. And then maybe they're upgrading. We'll see. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Justin Jolie out of NC State was somebody we paid attention to. And, maybe big wide receivers is something that they're looking for too. Jacoby Lane, a lot of the receivers, KJ Conception or KC Conception is not here, I don't believe. I think Jacoby Lane, the 6'4" wide receiver out of USC, and he did measure 6'4" today. I think he's the highest ranked on the consensus. Let's show how you do against man coverage, and show off your quickness on except for those deep contested balls, which we know he can do. We know he's got that straight line speed. Can he show a little bit of twitch on, and separate on a curl route or out route or whatever they ask of him?
Yeah, it really is a shame how many guys dropped out of here, because there were so many guys that I was really looking forward to seeing. Another guy that I think is interesting in the mold of Justin Jolie is John Michael Gillenborg, who is the tight end from Wyoming.
Yeah.
Another guy who's, tall and pretty light for a tight end. So basically like a big wide receiver. He's shorter than Jacoby. Oh my God, Jacoby Myers is what I'm trying to say.
Jacoby Myers is the old
Jacoby Lane.
Yeah, Jacoby Lane.
Yeah.
So, and again, like Wandale is technically not on this Giants team. He's a pending free agent. So maybe, they do look to replace him with a slot in the 5th round or something. I think that's something that's been a key coming out of the Senior Bowls. There's always one guy who in the slot you get impressed with. Tez Johnson. Well, I think Tez Johnson went undrafted last year, by the way, and then was a contributor for the Bucs. Was Tez Johnson undrafted? I don't
remember.
I think he went undrafted.
But Aaron Anderson is down here from LSU. He's a short guy who's going to be a slot only kind of dude.
7th round.
And extremely, extremely agile, very, very good change of direction, a monster in the open field. It's truly dangerous, home run speed as well. So Aaron Anderson, and it's somebody that we've talked about in the past already. The way too early we talked about Aaron Anderson. He's down here, so I'm excited for that because we get to talk about him again, and he might actually just fill that Wandale role.
Yeah, and there's other guys who may fill that role. Colin Lacey out of Louisville, 5'8", 189. And then again, you've got your fair share of bigger bodies as well down here too. So, a little bit of schedule, because like you said, we're not going to go crazy in the Senior Bowl preview. We've done all these coaches. This episode has been chaotic. And supposedly the YouTube is just playing ads nonstop. So it's been a wonderful mess this episode. It's this damn cow.
It's
in fact,
probably the cow.
We may sacrifice this cow in a not like sacrificing it to anybody, just sacrificing because we hate it. Because there was people sacrificed this cow and it was a big deal. Anyways, we're gonna get demonetized. We're not going to worry about ads after that. We're definitely getting demonetized. So what we're doing down this week is we're doing interviews. We're putting them out on our Patreon.
That's right.
They're only quick. Like, I'm not going to sit here and oversell them. They're quick 5 to 10 minute interviews, kind of basic questions of just like, what are you looking to prove? What about this game? What do you do on 3rd down type of stuff? I do like Bud Clark though. We just put that out on the Patreon. After he's like, man, you got me thinking early in the morning. I was like, yes, I like that. I'm making the safety think. He seemed pretty smart, so I'm excited to watch him. I thought Lee Hunter was our best interview today. So Grump will be a part of those tomorrow. So we'll be rolling those out on Patreon. But the main thing is we'll be live after every day, right? So we're going to be there at both practices, taking notes, a lot of trenches, going to go live 30 to 45 minutes tops. And then we'll have a full preview for you on Friday. We've been assuming that Todd Monken would be our offensive coordinator, but I am going to just declare that episode will be titled Giants OC Todd Monken plus Senior Bowl recap. So I'm excited, man. It is our favorite week of the year. It's not as fun when the Giants are going through a coaching search because it feels like your head is spinning because there's so many things happening at one time. But it is still fun. I think it's the most pure week of the year for us because one, we're in person. We're in Mobile, Alabama. It's not some city that's calling your name to go out and do anything. It's an all ball week. Like we are a podcast that's doing football. That's what this week is about. It's doing football. It's not about making connections or rubbing elbows or testing numbers. It's about football. It's their players are on the field. They're doing football, and we're talking football. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the football.
This is my favorite week out of the entire winter.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people I like going to the combine, the draft. Like this is we want to go to Mobile, Alabama. We don't want them to ever move from Mobile, Alabama. We want to watch this next year. So the Giants won't be hiring a head coach next year. I'll just go out and go out on a limb and say that. I want to be the all-star podcast. The Hula Bowl hour. I almost went to it this year, but the Giants were doing the coaching
Shrine Bowl.
Hula Bowl. And then we had conversations about double dipping the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, but with the Giants coaching search, it was too much. We're going to do that at some point. Maybe that's next year. So I think we might just be the college all-star game Giants podcast, the number one college all-star game Giants podcast. So
say less.
Also, the poll, 59% said you should move to Florida. So that settles it.
Shit.
I'll pay for your.
What percentage said that we had no audio? So
yeah, that was about 3%. This is a chaos pod. So anything else? Jordan did not make the trip, by the way, because John Harbaugh and Joe Shane are not going to be here. We'll do something with him. I think we'll probably try and go live with him Thursday. I got to talk to him.
We'll figure it out.
So again, follow us on our socials, at Bobby Skinner _ at football _ Grump, at Giants Nation Pod on Twitter and Giants Nation Show on Instagram. So we'll be giving you guys a lot of content. It's a fun week. Thank you guys for sticking with us, especially through the technical difficulties we had at the beginning of the podcast. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.